I have Elsa Johnson here today, and she is a high performance coach. She's the type of person that helps you get over those really tough spots in life. Could you tell us a little bit about your what you've been into and what got you started into coaching?
Well, I'd love to do that. It's one of my favorite topics. So I come from originally from a financial background when I grew up in Denmark, where I started out my career. When I lived in the US, worked for a lot of small entrepreneurial companies. And then I started my own interior design business, which I worked in for over 2 decades. And it was a tangible goods business, right? It was easy to say, okay, here's some windows. You need to have window coverings on it. It's very simple. However, for some reason, I was always running in against the same challenges in my business.
Right.
And a few years back, actually, it started in 15. I know it very specifically because it started with a statement my father said to me, and it really started a whole host of thoughts and developments for myself. I never been into personal development, but I realized I had to look inward. I had to look inward and see why were I constantly running into these problems. And then I moved it, and then I started studying all the neuroscience behind it. And I often tell people, coaching found me. It wasn't like I was going to find it. However, what I also realized is going through the progress of doing that is in our pre-talk here, we were talking about marketing around it. And that's why I brought up the interior design business. It was very tangible. It's easy to tell people, here's a pillow. It costs this much money. It fits into your color scheme. It's perfect. But another thing is helping people find those perfect alignments in their mindset, because that's really what I do. Right? It's not much different in my what I did in an interior design as you do with your brain or your internal world, basically. Because the kitchen and the living room and the family room should work cohesively, just like your family life, your business, and your social impact. You have to be feel comfortable and at home in all areas of your life. And
I'm sorry, I hear the things about feng shui that kind of take off in that direction, trying to make a livable situation. They call it feng shui. You know, how things are pointed in the house. I think it's a little crazy myself, but how do you help people visualize what and get it across to them? Because that's the intangible, unless you have samples, probably some things they can see and touch.
I think the biggest sample they can see and touch is myself,
Ah,
seeing that where I was, and I can share with them where I was and where I am now.
mhm.
Because as we also talk about is I realized for myself when I first started out, my tagline, live, love, not live, love, but live, lead, grow confidently is for me, it all comes back to how do you lead your own life? What is it that you have the capability of to be in control of at all times? And the only thing you have the capability to be in control of all the time is yourself and how you interact with other people. You can come across clients, vendors, associate family members where you can get triggered for various different ways, but you have no control over their behavior. The only control you have is how do you interact with that person and how do you set your boundaries? How do you set for yourself the way that you can best mentally and emotionally feel fully equipped to deal with that situation?
Well, when you get to work with high performance people, I think it speaks even louder. It's the problems they have might be much greater in the sense of what they're trying to accomplish. There's more pressure there, I would think.
I think absolutely. And I think one of the things that people always get surprised about is that they always say, oh, they're already performing high. Why do they need somebody like you? And I'm like, yeah, but they do it. They almost need more help because they're so ultra focused on this outcome or this goal that they don't see when they get in their own way. that sometimes being so ultra focused on, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do it, they forget that they have a whole host of resources they can enlist to get them actually further. And this is one of the reasons why I love an old African proverb, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's a great one. That's great. I would think with the sports people, professional athletes, for example, there's so much pressure because there's money involved and they have to keep up their level of performance. And when they're off game, they need someone like you because of the fact that it could be life balance problems and they're getting in their own way. And how do you get their head back into where it needs to be to perform at the level that they're accustomed to and what everyone expects of them?
It boils down to identity. It boils down to making sure that your identity is tied to who you are and not what you do. We are called human beings. We are not called human doing. So if you're professional athletes, that's your job. That's something that you do, but that's not necessarily who you are as a human being. And when you are at that shooting that game winning point, if you keep saying, if I don't shoot this, I am not this amazing athlete, then your mind starts messing with you and put an enormous amount of pressure on you. Whereas if you say, if I shoot this basket or not, I am still a good human being. I'm still loved by the people around me. I still am comfortable in my own skin. Then that doesn't change. So the pressure that you build on yourself is very different.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you have possibly a little story of someone you worked with? You don't have to name names, but something that made a lot of difference and they came back to you and really showed their gratitude.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't do that, but every now and then in life, something comes your way that lets you know that you really are helping people. And that's such a feeling of joy that one could get when you know you've made a difference and someone's right there telling you, hey, you made a difference in my life. Can you think of maybe a story of a situation where you helped make a difference?
Oh, yes. I can think of several of them, but one that just popped into my mind as you were talking was a professional. This happened to be a woman. I work with both women and men. But this particular client, she was under an enormous amount of pressure because her company, she was heading up this new division and it's really, really important that they get the sales going. And she was the outward facing person. And she came to me and says, oh, I really want to do a good job. I want to do all these things. And I'm under so much pressure. And as we worked together, she realized for herself truly how she was sabotaging her own success, really being so focused on doing all these things rather than saying, what can I do in this moment? And also extending her understanding to the people around her. She was constantly battling up against somebody that she felt was sabotaging her ability to get success. And we were talking through it and seeing how she was actually not triggered by that person's behavior, but there was something in her past where a person of a similar personality really had made her feel very small and very insecure. And that's really what happens to us a lot of times, that in this moment that we are reacting to something, we're not really reacting to the person or the situation. We are reacting to our personal history. So for her, what we were able to do is have her say, okay, when I'm with this person, if I'm fully present, if I'm fully engaging with this person and hearing what they're saying, rather than hearing this old story in my head, then I'm able to go beyond what's actually holding me back. And they ended up having a beautiful working relationship. And I was asking her at one point in time, says, what does your work give, our work together? what does that give you in your daily life? And she says, it gives me joy. It gives me joy and ability to, even in the most stressful situations, knowing that is just a phase. Stress is, I can manage my stress because I will always be busy, but the more I think about I'm busy, the more stressful I get. But here's now she was able to understand that every moment we have the choice to do either A or B. And then constantly looking, saying, is A going to be the step with the more light? Or is it going to be the one that where I'm constantly pushing and pushing and pushing and exhausting myself?
That's having to dig deep there because I'm sure you come across self-sabotaging behavior, but finding the reason and digging deep enough to bring it out and then being able to communicate what's going on for the person to understand and then give them a new pathway. That's where you make a big difference, absolutely, in someone's life because they're making that change in a direction that becomes where the joy is, as opposed to the other path. It's not so good. That's why they come and is to see to try and get a handle on their life again. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's again, it comes back to that thought of personal leadership. Remember the first time I had the thought around integrity. I don't think I've
Mhm.
met any business owner who says they didn't value integrity. Right? That they wanted to be a person of integrity, they wanted to be respected for their integrity. And then yet when you sit down and talk with them, they have no integrity with themselves. They constantly sell themselves short. They constantly break their promise to themselves. I want to do better with my family. I want to be more present. I want to do all these things. But as soon as something comes up, they jump away from it. Oh, then I got to work late. Then I got to do this. Then I got to do that. So you were always in this conflict of knowing that you're breaking the integrity with it yourself. And if you're in the habit of breaking the integrity with yourself, there's always a disconnect. And that's that personal leadership is like saying, like, if something comes up with a client, there's nobody that I've ever come across that can't say to a client, for, let me take an example in my interior design business. I would get a phone call at 8 o'clock at night and say, XYZ, I got to pick this out and the painter is coming tomorrow morning and blah, 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 blah. Right. And
Okay.
many times I could have said, I can't take this call right now. This is family time. And then be in integrity with myself that I value my family. But no, I would be on the phone for half an hour and it didn't matter because I could have just said to my clients or set my clients up for saying, I don't take work calls after 8 o'clock or or 7 or whatever time you want it, unless it's an extreme emergency, which in interior design, it's not brain surgery. It's not heart surgery. Nobody cares about what is the right color until the painter is showing up in the morning. So let's
So how
revisit that in the morning.
revisit in the morning. So is this the thing about having to reset habits and set boundaries? It's
Oh,
and people
absolutely.
need help with that. If people need help with that. Now, some kind of an accountability, I would think.
So,
Somehow, how can they have accountability? I guess what I'm trying to how does a person discipline themselves and start moving into that direction where they have enough discipline to get up and do the work they really don't feel like doing when it needs to be done, even during the workday? I'm not talking about after hours, but sometimes they'll find a lot of little small little things to do that are nowhere near getting a project done. There's just so many other things. In other words, the priority of their day, all the priorities they deal with, get them mixed up sometimes. I see that myself sometimes.
oh, absolutely. So for me, the way that I work with clients is a big chunk of our initial work together is digging really deep to why is this so important to you? And I know a lot of people talk about the why. and you've got to dig down deep to find it. But I really spend a lot of time around this, coming back to that. Who are you being? Who are you as a person? Who do you want to, who do you want to be known for being? Be- And one of the things that I often talk to people about is saying, what do you want people to say about you in your eulogy? Do you want them to say he was top salesman 10 years running? Do you want them to say he went above and beyond everything you could ever imagine in his business? And I'm being a little outrageous here, but I have not really met anybody who say, yeah, that's what I want. They want kind, compassionate, wonderful father, great mentor, saved my life, all these things. That's what we want people. That's what most of us really, truly deep down want, that we have created an impact for people when we are no longer here, that somehow our legacy as a human being resonated with other people and enriched their lives. So once you have whatever that is for you established, then the other things just becomes a matter of aligning your activities to fall into that. And that's again the integrity. It's about being committed to doing something and people know they can count on you. And it's easy to say no to XYZ and you know it doesn't align with who you are. And it becomes easy to say yes to the things that we really want to do because we
So
know
can
that is
people,
again in alignment with it.
that's again, whether they're in alignment or not.
Yes.
I was thinking about how people focus. These days, multitasking was such a big deal, and if you're working for someone, they expect you to do so much multitasking, and then you take it into your own life probably, and it's like nothing gets done, but you're working on 50 things at once. Eventually, something gets done. But how do you see that to help people get a balance in that area between focus and multitasking? Seems like we do too much of that multitasking.
So the funny thing is, there's really no such thing as multitasking. You can only do
Oh,
one thing at a time. It is, it's a multi priority, right? Because multitasking, and that's the problem. It actually reduces productivity if you think it can work on three things at the same time because it's stop and go, rather than if you focus on the one thing for this chunk of time and then you clear your head and now you focus on the next thing, then you actually get more done. But that's a totally, now I got a little sidetracked. But the way that it becomes a habit about how do you structure your day according to priorities? How do you, instead of, a lot of people ask me, I need a better time management system. And I typically say, no, we need a better priority system because a lot of times we focus more on the things we think we need to do than the things that actually is going to move us forward.
there's projects that are as big as an elephant. You always hear the saying, and take one bite at a time, right?
Yes.
Versus other things that are just going to take a few minutes to do, but you might have 20 of those little short-term little things.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's very difficult to be doing a lot of things at once.
But in the end, then you overburden yourself where there can be a conversation. It can be that they themselves have gone through something traumatic where they're too afraid to speak up and say, I don't know. I don't know. As I said, to fill in the gap where you may or may not know. Who do you need to rely on in order to support you and teach you those skills? And who can you have that can help you keep you accountable and keep yourself in a place there, right? And be open to showing your own vulnerability and your own insecurities because that builds trust in itself, right? Just to show them that, hey, I'm trying to do my best here. It is a little bit of a give and a take. And so when you have somebody, like I said, like somebody like myself, where you can create your own little test lab in your head and just speak it out with people, understand that just because a lot of times entrepreneurship is such a lonely journey, right? We think that we are the only one who have ever experienced what we're going through because we're too afraid to really speak that into the world. And when you have a confidant like a coach that have no interest in the outcome in your business in that's run through a whole bunch of scenarios in a very safe environment. Because even your family, if you I don't care how good a relationship you have with your business partner or your if it's your family, there's a partner in it, they always have a personal interest in the outcome. So they are always going to be a little bit clouded for the decision making process.
I see. I have used a mastermind before with 8 other people, and we'd meet once a month, and that would be pretty good. 2 people out of the 8 would going through what problems they have, and it was either personal or business. It could be
Yeah.
either. Sometimes that it was a mix of both. But the feedback you're able to give and the emotional investment people are making in a situation, it's a very high trust thing. There's a non-disclosure agreement you're signing for one thing, just to keep everything there because
Yeah.
they're letting out their little secrets of how they do business and they're looking for help and they don't want to look weak.
No. And the other thing and I completely believe in the mastermind process. I think the next level that a coach brings into it, and I know that for myself, is I bring in the neuroscience part of it. So they might be able to help you to say, okay, these are the processes, or these are the things that you need to put in place. But if you have any kind of challenges within yourself where you are not fully ready to execute on, that's where the coach can support you in getting you over that hurdle where your
I want to thank
mastermind
you.
cannot do that.
You mastermind can't do that. That's right. I want to thank you for the time. And I think I learned quite a bit from you. And this will be fun. I look forward to speaking with you again. And so the topic of how to solve problems, because you just don't do everything yourself. You just got to open yourself up to bring in the coach when the coach is needed, for sure.
Yeah, because we don't know what we don't know. And
Said, close. I want to thank you so much. You have a super, and
wonderful. I
yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
being here and your time. Awesome. I appreciate it, Mike.
Hey,
You have a great day.
thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.